Greetings. Welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, Rashid, and here is your co-host, Rashid. I don't understand what's going on. And we're having a feedback, blowback from one of the computers. Give me a second. Let's see. All right, here we are. All right. So, Rashid, how's it going today?
It's going, black man. It's going. We
dried
out here. We dried out here on the west. See if I can do it, bro. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Hold on one second. I need some. Hey, hold on one second. Hold on. The door just. Yes. I'm here. For those of you who are joining us on the Red Pill Diaries, we'd like to thank you for joining us. It's a couple technical glitches. We're waiting for our guest, Helen Buyniski, to come. If she doesn't arrive in the next 3 to 5 minutes, then I'll hit her up and see if there's a time misunderstanding or a time delay or something like that. But Rashid, man, it seems like the world is crashing and going to hell in the handbasket, man. Every time you turn on the news, America's motives, actions, and moves go from the crazy to the outrageous to the outlandish to the insane. I want to pose something to you. Check this out. So America's illegal base, I want the people to understand this. One of America's illegal outposts in the sovereign country of Syria, the Syrian Arab Republic, was hit. And America is now lashing out at the people who reside in the country, who are actually citizens and born in that country, and she's bombing them and saying that she has a right to self-defense. Now, for those of you who may not understand this is tantamount to the rapists saying that they have a right to defend themselves against the one that is being raped, that is fighting against them. So that is what have you to say about this double speak, this I would call it bizarro speak, because up is down, down is up, in is out is in, and right is wrong when you're dealing with the Western and especially the U.S. politicians and their policies and how they present their policies to the people. Go ahead, Rashid. Are you there?
What you have is
okay.
People. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
What you have is people with a sense of right and wrong. These people, that's the way they think. I right to come over, kick down your door, go in there and brutalize you and your family, and you ain't got nothing to do with it. I keep telling you, I'm the king, and the king can do whatever he wants. You are all my subjects, and you ain't got nothing to say about what I want to do. How in the world can somebody sit up there, the way the Western world is? I go and invade a country, kill up everybody, and then they the bad guys. Oh, what aren't you the one who brought terror to these people? That's the way the white world thinks. They think that everybody should be able to do exactly what they want them to do.
Yeah. And what's crazy is this
and you ain't got nothing to say about it.
I have to cut you off for a minute. We have Helen in the booth. I'm going to bring her to the screen. Let us just let her know she's a journalist. She writes for RussiaToday.com and other blogs or whatever. So we're going to bring her to the masses and let her talk. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm trying to get this
hold
banner
on.
off of your face.
My sound thing just fell off. I need to put my headphones in so we can avoid catastrophe here.
Okay. I'm trying to, while you're doing that, I'm trying to get us where we can. Okay. All right, that should be good. Mm. Here we are. And while we wait for Helen to get her earpieces right, again, I want our audience to realize and think about this. The Western world and the logic of the leadership of the Western world is outrageous. To occupy Syria illegally and get mad that the Syrian people, and this is what the West does. They label the people who are fighting to liberate their land as terrorists or Iranian bagged thugs. They don't talk about them illegally occupying Syria, 1/3 of Syria, stealing the resources, the wheat, the corn, to prevent Syria from becoming a totally independent nation that is outside the grasp or the grips of the Western power circle. They don't tell you that. They want you to believe that the people who are launching attacks against them are terrorists. That's example. Say, for instance, my next door neighbor. And I go asking one
problem here.
day he
For some reason, this isn't picking up. It's not going through this. It's not going through the not going through the audio. Something funky is going on here.
Okay, let's see your mouth now.
Oh, here we go. No, audio. Wait a second. USB audio device? No, that's not it. Is that? No. No, that's not it.
We can hear and see you.
Oh, here we go. Okay, there we go. That's better. No, yeah, now I'm not going to feedback. It wasn't going through the speakers. Sorry, I always have technical difficulties. I hate this.
Okay. All right. Well, how are you doing today?
Every day.
I'm good. Much better now that I've got things functioning. How are you guys?
We're doing pretty good. Tell the people about your work, and before we get into the talking about the geopolitical landscape and how they can get in contact with you or how they can read some of your work.
Okay. I mean, I'm an investigative journalist, political commentator, I suppose. You can read my stuff. Currently is on Substack, helenofdestroy.substack.com. I also have a website, helenofdestroy.com, although that hasn't been updated in a while. I did recently get it back working again, which is an accomplishment, I suppose. I have Twitter and Telegram, Velociraptor23, VELOCIRAPTURE 23. Follow me both of those places. Yeah, I mean, I write for RT sometimes. I've written for a whole lot of other places, GlobalResearch. Wrote a chapter in Cynthia McKinney's book on the coronavirus a couple of years ago. Wrote something that was supposed to come out for Vera Sharav's book on the Never Again Is Now. I was supposed to have a chapter for that, but that didn't end up working out. However, it's been published mostly on my Substack, so there's lots of places to follow me.
Okay. Well, let's get right into the geopolitical thing. What do you think about America describing the people who attacked her one of her illegal outposts in the Syrian Arab Republic and labeling them as terrorists when she is actually occupying territory illegally in contravention to all new UN norms?
Unfortunately, it's very predictable for the United States. It's completely hypocritical. It's completely disgusting. It's adding insult to injury in all sorts of ways that, unfortunately, is going to just be very familiar to anyone who's been following the United States geopolitical exploits for the last 20-something years. I mean, this is like the neocon thing, is that they just go to a place, they declare it belongs to them, and then anybody who opposes them, who's defending their own land, is a criminal or a terrorist or just needs to be exterminated, and that's how it goes. And it's just disgusting that they've continued to get away with it for so long, because the American people have the memory of a goldfish. I mean, the Iraq War was 20 years ago, and I mean, I still remember all of that, and I wasn't exactly very politically attuned at that point. So the fact that I can remember the people just goes in one eye and out the other, or in one brain cell and out the other. And but people like the biggest cheerleaders of the Iraq War have reinvented themselves as like progressive liberals who are like it's such a joke. I mean, you want to laugh, but you can't because these people are running the show, and that's just disappointing.
Let's see. Rashid, do you have your question is up next? Rashid, you can ask her a question.
Well, as we were saying before, America treats everybody like she's the king and everybody else is her subjects, and she can go around and do anything she want around the world, and then nobody else ain't got any say about it. You know, I can come in and bomb you and kill you, and then run around calling you a terrorist, and that's the way she acts toward the world. It's a master-slave a relationship, and that's what we see. That's exactly the way she acts. She acts like she's the king, and her subject. And
yeah, I've referred to it as the it's freezing. I've referred to it as like the abusive relationship because Uncle Sam goes and he beats the crap out of some poor like third world nation in exchange for, you know, favorable the ability to trade with other nations, because if you don't let Uncle Sam beat the crap out of you, they embargo you and you can't do anything at all. But then he says, oh no, it'll be fine, baby, it'll be fine. And it's just that they keep coming back, and it's this sick, vicious cycle, and the people have no say in the matter. They can't what are they gonna do? Run to the cops? The cops are Uncle Sam's friends, and they're just gonna beat her up too. So it's really disgusting, and this is the exceptional nation. I mean, yeah, exceptional isn't necessarily a good thing, guys. There's some ways in which you don't want to be exceptional. If you want to be the most psychopathic nation, if you want to be the most rapacious, the most like having no shame. I know there's a word for having no shame, and I can't think of it off the top of my head, but yeah, there are ways in which you do not want to be exceptional. And unfortunately, the United States, I mean, we're number one in the most prisoners in per capita and just in general in the world. I think we're number one in like the people who believe in some mythological thing that people believe in. We're number one in that. I think child literacy is pretty high up there. Like we're number one in all the things you don't want to be number one in, basically.
What does that say?
Goes to like, hold on one second. When America says she's coming in to bring democracy to you, everybody should run for the hills.
Well, you know, I was going to ask you, following up on what you said about how America's number one now in all of those things that she shouldn't be in. What does that say about the future of the republic, especially when they invest more money in prisons than they do in education? And we know that education is the foundation for any civilized and progressive society.
It says that there is no future for the republic. I would say I don't see one. I've been predicting the downfall of it for many years now, and I know I'm far from the only one. I don't see there is these people that we have running the government, mostly in Congress and in the executive branch and in the judicial branch, and all three of them. They're all like 70, 80 years old. Some of them pushing 90. And so these are short-termers. Like these are people who are not going to be around to experience the fallout of their terrible decisions. So unfortunately, they're leaving us, the rest of us all holding the bag. We have no ability to like pry these people loose from their death grip on the halls of power, and it's getting worse and worse. I mean, you would think that they would want to, leave a good legacy for the history books, maybe, but they probably quite cynically and quite accurately have figured that nobody in 20 years is going to be able to read anyway. So it doesn't matter how they show up in the history books because no one will be able to tell what they say. I mean, we're hurtling headlong towards idiocracy. I don't think when that movie was made that it was meant to be a documentary, but it sure is now.
But what about this? What about this? Okay, you say it doesn't look like there's a future for the republic. Well, what does that say about Israel? Because Israel gets a lot of its funding and a lot of its armament from the U.S., and it is now threatening the most powerful nation in the region over there, which is Iran. What does that say about Israel's standing also?
I think Israel has pretty much banked its future on being able to hop from one host. As the parasite, it's going to hop from one host to another. So the U.S. is the host that's dying off, that's like desiccating into a husk. There's nothing left for it to suck out. So it's going to hop onto China and then start sucking furiously. And I mean, they're already like partially through the process of transferring over to China. They want to basically serve as like the toll booth guardian on the One Belt, One Road system. And so I think they purchased the port. China has purchased the port of Haifa, and so they've got that relationship there. And Israel is trying to make itself useful to China. I think both countries feel like they're getting one over on the other, and it remains to be seen who is actually getting one over on the other. But I think that Israel tends to just think that of everyone else as being completely subhuman and not even worthy of their consideration as a being with a soul. I mean, it's in their religious texts and everything. It's really quite obscene that this is considered like an acceptable belief in this day and age. But so they did generally believe that people are not capable of forming like complex schemes and thoughts and geopolitical strategies. So I think that they're underestimating China, and hopefully they'll get their comeuppance at some point. I mean, the fact that the United States has allowed them to just completely ditch its sovereignty in a dumpster and set it on fire and steal all our money and use it to further abuse our hospitality it's disgusting, and it really says a lot of terrible things about this country. But
now, before Rashid asks you a question, Rashid, I'm going to highlight a comment from one of our people in the chat, and if you would, you could address what they're saying. It says, this is from No Way Out. He says, the U.S. wage war, I think it's supposed to be wage war, yeah, to have cheap resources at the expense and exploitation of other countries for their corporations. What have you to say on that?
That's very accurate in my view. That's the U.S. I mean, we went into Iraq. It wasn't just to prop up Israel's Oded Yanan plan for the greater Israel and this larger presence of themselves in the Middle East. It was also for the United States to get cheap oil, and people are like, oh no, it was just for the one thing. They can do more than one thing at the time, and in fact, they need to do more than one thing at a time, because otherwise you don't have plausible deniability, and you can't say that like, oh no, it was their fault that we invaded on false pretenses and like completely destroyed this functional country. But yeah, I mean, and it's the same reason that we're fighting so much terrorism in Africa these days. It just happens to all these terrorist groups happen to be in these countries that have all this like cobalt and all of these like rare earth minerals, and that China is investing in. And because of course the United States doesn't have real money, we just have a bunch of like we have intimidation, and we have like paper notes that have a value of intimidation. So like this is 5 intimidation notes, and this is there's nothing to back them up. I mean, we have nothing of value in terms of resources. Like we offshored all of our manufacturing during the 1990s, and in exchange for what? Being the biggest financial power, so we can like cook up a bunch of fake derivatives that don't actually mean anything. As soon as you pull the plug out of the computer, there's nothing there. There's nothing to back them up. It's just people doing complex like financial legerdemain, and like if you could just wave your arms a lot, and it makes it look like there's money there, but there's no money there. I have a feeling that if you open the door to Fort Knox, there would be like tumbleweeds, and like there's nothing in there anymore. I think that they sold the store to buy more buy more weapons. But yeah, it's really bad, because other populations are being screwed for us.
I think Gerald Salente say you got about a couple of gold couple of buckets of gold coins in Fort Knox. He said that's about all we have in there. Most people really don't ask you what you were saying before about these derivatives. It's a bet. Yeah. That's all it is. And then it's just like you go to a card game and somebody writes you a note that say they're going to give you something, and you're going to put that down as legitimate money. They don't, most people do not understand. It's a Ponzi scheme, and it's coming to an end.
Yep. Yeah. We're going to be the ones left holding the bag.
Since we're on that subject, why is it that there's so much focus on low-level crime, and they're saying that criminality is out of pocket, but and they want to throw the hammer down on lower class black, brown, red, yellow, and white people, and they allow Goldman Sachs and all of these other corporations to steal everything not nailed down, and no one goes to jail or get blamed for it. And all that happens is they offer them more money through bailouts. Why is that? And how can a country maintain itself doing such, carrying out such criminal acts?
Well, mostly the lawmakers are all blackmailed 6 ways to Sunday with stuff like Jeffrey Epstein's sex ring, and like there are videos of these people doing just the most horrible things. And so, if any of them does decide to catch a conscience at some point, then all they need to do is get a phone call in the middle of the night reminding them of, oh, we have a tape of you with this 8-year-old girl, and it's very. I don't think anybody makes it into even like low-level congressional. There have been a few, but like Cynthia McKinney is a notable exception to this rule. But I don't think you make it into Congress without being thoroughly compromised in some way, either sexually, or maybe they have a drug problem, or they've committed some sort of crime in their past that nobody knows about, but that somebody could easily find out about if they raise their voice too much. So, I mean, the banks know that they have them wrapped around their fingers, and it's just they know that also by focusing on low-level crime and by trotting down on the already downtrodden, it's a way to keep the people distracted from what they know that the people know there's something wrong in the world, but they don't necessarily know what it is if they're watching TV news and whatnot, because they don't get told what is actually going on in the world. And so if you point the finger at the less fortunate, and then it's easy for them to just like sublimate their confusion, their frustration, their rage on these people who really have nothing to do with it. I mean, it's the guy knocking over the corner liquor store is not the reason why you can't pay your mortgage. Like, it's nothing to do with one or the other.
Yeah.
He gets,
Rashid, I know you have something to say. Go ahead.
He gets 20 years in jail for knocking over a liquor store, and here these guys steal $500 billion and nothing happened to it.
Yeah, they get a bigger yacht.
You're right about that. A bigger yacht or another mansion, or else be able to go buy an island like Epstein did.
What did they say about the Silicon Valley Bank? The day of the Feds taking over, or the day before, the corporate heads had given each other large bonuses. I mean, and the government didn't have anything to say about that.
And Israeli companies came in and took all their money out before it crashed. And how did they get the advance notice? I mean, nobody's talking about that. But
it was a coincidence. It was just a coincidence, right?
Always, so many coincidences. That's all we have. There's no such thing as planning.
Yes.
Foresight.
And if you say so, you're a conspiratist.
You're not only a conspiracy theorist, you're also an anti-Semite.
Yeah. And you'll get banned and censored on almost every social media platform for just offering a different view or offering information that is being censored, it is amazing. And I want to bring this up since we're on this point of how they censor certain things. Now, isn't it amazing that you can talk bad about, you can call a white person a cracker, you can call a black person a nigger, you can talk about Jesus, you can talk about Muhammad, but how dare you say anything about that upper class that says that they if you say something about them, it's anti-Semitic? And isn't there a law in Europe that if you question the Holocaust, you can be put in prison?
Yeah, and actually, there's this offense over in Germany called "quote unquote" trivializing the Holocaust. Now, Vera Sharav, who is like this health freedom activist who's been doing this for decades, she's actually survived the Holocaust. She was a little girl, was in some camp, and like she went over there to speak for some medical freedom rally, and they tried to charge her with trivializing the Holocaust because she likened what the German government is doing to people under the guise of coronavirus reactions to the Holocaust. And like she was there, she's seen it. I mean, she was a little girl. I don't think she really remembers it, but I mean, she has the right to at least use it as a rhetorical bludgeon once in a while. I think you've earned that. So yeah, they have no shame. They have no shame.
As we were saying before, if the Holocaust happened, and we're not saying that it did or it didn't, but if the Holocaust happened, why don't they take the Germans' land instead of taking the Palestinians? The Palestinians had nothing to do with the Holocaust.
I mean, well, that's the interesting part is that like Adolf Hitler actually had an agreement with the Zionist movement prior to the whole Holocaust thing to have there was it's called the transfer agreement, the Havara agreement, and they would facilitate the movement of Jews in Germany and in other parts of Eastern Europe to the Holy Land, quote unquote, to get them out of Germany because he didn't want them in Germany and they wanted to have the muscle of a state behind them, getting them into the Palestine. So it's the whole thing is not quite as cut and dry as it's told to people. And I mean, it's unfortunate that this is a time in history that people are not able to question. Just like, I mean, no one's saying that it didn't happen. That's a ridiculous thing to say. Obviously, there's things that there is concrete evidence that certain things happen, but like. The fact that we can't even talk about details and things like, well, collaboration between the Zionist movement and the Nazis, who are supposedly these mortal enemies. So many movies have been made and so many TV shows and so many, the History Channel, their nightly Nazi show. It's the amount of propaganda that has been churned out over this one, like, flicker in history. There have been much worse genocides. There have been much worse. I think we're living through right now a much worse genocide, I would argue. I mean, the extent of this coronavirus experiment, which I mean, I don't think that that's an inaccurate term to use because they knew from the beginning that it was an experiment and that there was no consent gained from any of our experimental test subjects, which is basically the entire population of the world. Millions of people have died because of these people felt the need to test out their fun little science project on the world. And I would argue that is actually a pretty significant crime against humanity. And I don't think that humanity has ever seen the likes of it before. And I don't think that we ever will again, because that would just kill us all. So, I mean.
And if anybody say anything about this shot, they want to throw you off the air or stop you from getting to work or do anything they can to make you not be in society if you say you don't want the shot.
Mm. Yep. I mean, this is again talk about me. Who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? It's like, oh, that guy didn't just drop dead on the field. No, he had a headache and he went to lie down. Or the kids are getting heart attacks because they're drinking cold lemonade in the hot summer, and like these ridiculous things that like people are actually parroting as like reality, and they're having some fun with us, let's say.
Mm. So what do you think the ramifications of Israel's hard policies towards Iran? Because we already know that there's a proxy war between the two going on in Iraq, Iran,
Syria.
Israel trains Kurds to go into Iran to hit infrastructure. Iran retaliates and destroys their bases in Iraq, killing some Mossad agents and all of this stuff like this. What do you think the ramifications of this, especially that I must mention that in Yemen, the United States, the UK, and Israel are all occupying a strategic island that belongs to the Yemeni people. And they have set up military bases there and they are also in the resource trying to extract the minerals. Why isn't anyone saying anything in the way? Nobody take.
I'm sorry, the last part of that came out garbled. What was the last question? Why isn't anybody saying something?
And what does this mean for Israel's position?
Oh.
What does this mean with these moves? What does this mean for Israel's position in West Asia or the Middle East? And what does this say about American hypocritical policies?
Well, I think that Netanyahu feels like he needs to have these big gestures of attacking Israel's enemies, because right now he's still under investigation for this fraud case. Like he should be in jail right now, but the fact that he's gotten the Israeli population all head up with like more war. It's always the thing, is that they could just keep shoveling more war in the fire. Eventually, Israel can't wage all these wars. I mean, they only have so much resources. They only have so much that they can steal from us, so much that they can like guilt extract out of Germany or the Netherlands or whichever country they're now going to declare as responsible for the Holocaust. Like it's there's a limited amount of resources to go around, and so I think that they're basically digging their own grave by doing this sort of thing. But it's just a question of which will collapse first. I think that's also part of the reason why they're trying to create this quote unquote big Israel in Ukraine, is that when Israel is eventually bombed into a glass table by Iran or by whoever just gets sick of their shit and decides to take action, I mean, they're going to have somewhere to go. And Ukraine is nice and big, and it's going to be pretty empty by the time they get done churning all of the Ukrainians into a meat grinder like Zelensky is intent on doing. I mean, talk about a guy who has just no respect for his people that elected him. I mean, of course, they didn't really have much of a choice. It was him or Poroshenko again. But like this, it's really a very enormous atrocity what's going on over there. And the fact that the United States and the UK and all of us in the West are cheering on, oh, yes, they're fighting for their freedom. Yes, their freedom to die ignominiously in a field like for some guy who like is 20 years ago was like thrusting his pelvis and playing piano with his dick on live television. Like this is not they're not sending their best, let's say.
And they say the man snorts cocaine. Ain't that something? Or a leader that snorts cocaine. And he never hear about none of it in the West. None of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, unfortunately, that's the United States. We have plenty of leaders who snort cocaine, so it's like they're in good company there. I guess I don't know.
I'm gonna go to the chat for a minute. I'm gonna bring up something on the chat real quick. This is from Adriano Fernandez. He says they stole Brazilian elections. I don't think he's talking about the Lula, the Silva. They have to be talking about Bolsonaro or something like that. Because well, I know
the parentheses thing means he's talking about Jews. I don't know about Jews stealing Brazilian elections. Like Lula, I mean, like the thing is that Bolsonaro screwed himself when he allowed the first round to go unchallenged because he won. He came out favorably in the first round, and so you can't like support the first round of elections because you come out well, and then say in the second round that there's cheating, there's been fraud. You either do it's all fraud or it's not. I mean, you can't have it both ways, and so he kind of made a mess there. And it's just neither of them are really people that you really want running your country. But seeing what Lula has done just in the short time that he's been back is pretty appalling. And like the vaccine stuff. That new benefits for all the benefits that Bolsonaro cut. You can all have back your benefits now. Just you have to get your kid vaccinated for coronavirus, and then if they die, you can use their benefits to get yourself a nice manicure. And he didn't actually say that, but that's the impression that you get from like his flippant.
Okay, here's the next from the chat. The next one, have you seen the Greater Israel thing just recently? Question.
No, this was a couple of years ago. This was like right in the beginning. Zelensky was talking about how Ukraine was going to be a big Israel with its own. I think it was with its own identity or something like that. It was with its own. There was a word there that didn't quite sound like it fit, and the idea was that just it's going to be a police state. He was talking about it in terms of like, how Israel has got soldiers on every corner and prying open your baby carriage to make sure that your child hasn't turned into a bomb in the last 5 feet of traveling down the sidewalk, especially if you're Palestinian. It's like he wants Ukraine to be that. And he said, or rather he thinks it will be necessary for it to be that because, those evil Russians are never going to let up unless we regime change them. He didn't actually say that, but it was very strongly implied in his description of this future Ukraine. Now, of course, they're already halfway there with this DIA city and a state in a smartphone, which is basically the social credit score paradigm by which they want to remake the entire West. I mean, they call Zelensky the West's bad idea man because basically everything they want to try that's like completely anti-democratic and super ultra mega fascist in nature that they wouldn't normally be able to pull over on like the American people or the British people or whoever, they have Zelensky go and do it first. They see if they can pass it off as democratic in their media spin manufacturing facilities. And if they can convince at least a large enough proportion of the population that it's legit, then they can go ahead and do the same thing at home. So unfortunately, I haven't seen a whole lot of protests from anyone back home that any of Zelensky's crap is legit. So it's we're going to be in for a treat pretty soon. I mean, especially the Miradvorets thing. That scares me.
She says it was on Telegram, a podium with the map of Greater Israel on it. The king of Jordan ain't happy. With the Saudis.
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about the big Israel. Greater Israel, the Oded Yinon plan is from the 1980s. That was a Israeli military strategist, I believe, who came out with this. Basically, you carve a piece off of all the nations that the United States has invaded since Bush took power. So you got a piece of Iraq, you got a piece of Iran, you got a piece of Syria, you got a piece of Turkey, and you have a big Israel from the Nile to the Euphrates, I think, is the two the borders that they wanted. And that's what the entire Bush foreign policy was about, was just basically finagling all of that land in accumulation so that Israel can have its playground. And
I see that y'all don't understand that they bring in democracy to all of those lands.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that the rest of the world at this point, because the United States has so thoroughly trashed that word, when you say democracy, the average person in the rest of the world thinks democracy involves like firebombing like children's schools and like blowing up like hospitals and like slaughtering herds of animals and like just basically leaving your country a smoking husk. And like, if we're going to go through like the pragmatic school of philosophy, whereas the definition of a thing is what that thing actually is in reality, then that's what democracy is now. Because I mean, we've got Pelosi talking about, oh, we are supposed to do this for our democracy, and what is our democracy? I mean, last time I checked, there's no democracy here. I haven't seen one of those in a long, long time, and I would say never. But I mean, we read about there being one in the past, but that's entirely possible that it never existed at all.
All right, No Way Out says, same as Ukraine, there is no Nazi in the government. What did the head of the parliament say in the on Ukrainian television? It says, quote, in Europe, there was one real Democrat in the 1930s and 40s. His name was Hitler. He is exemplary and a model for us. That's what he says that the speaker in the Ukrainian parliament said on Ukrainian TV.
Wouldn't surprise
and the United States ignores it.
Wouldn't surprise me. You know, they love their Nazis over there, man. I mean, them, Lithuania too. Lithuania and Estonia, they're all like huge fans of the Nazis. And it's like, so we're running around calling everybody in the United States anti-Semite if they so much as sneeze in Israel's direction. But we're just gonna go ship $100 billion over to Ukraine, and like where they're just sea piling all over the place and like marching around in their old SS uniforms. Like this, something doesn't quite add up here. But no, I mean, they love their Nazis over there.
All right, let's go.
And then
to
they got
the next
nerve
one.
enough.
Then
they got a nerve enough to say that China is sending money to.
Hold on 1 second. Hold on. I gotta get the chat, and then we'll come back. Hold on 1 second, Rashid. It says Free New World says, if there is no hope of survival for the American empire, will it be some ethnic cleansing at the end of the process?
I would say which ethnicity? Which ethnicity? I would say some ethnic cleansing is already underway. But I mean, the coronavirus was a race specific bioweapon. If you look at there are papers that have been published on the subject, and the case is pretty damning. But there's certain races that were not impacted by it at all, hardly, and certain ones that were much more. So if you look at the fertility numbers, they were all going down anyway. I mean, they're just going to finish asset stripping what's left of the society, and then just. I mean, you have to wonder if there's just a society that has only parasites and not hosts. What do the parasites live on? I'm going to answer this question soon.
All right, Rashid, finish your thought.
And then they got the nerve to say that China is helping Russia with weapons, but they sending everything, including the kitchen sink, to Ukraine. It just doesn't make. If China send them a slingshot, he's ranting and raving all over the news, and they go over there giving Ukraine M16s and fighter jets, and now they're talking about giving them the uranium. It just shows that the hypocrisy of America.
It's like they never made it past like projection 101 in like psychological warfare school. It's like, okay, accuse your enemy of that with which you are guilty. Okay, we got it. Yeah, we're accusing them of the stuff we're guilty of. Yeah, okay, good job. Now sit down and shut up, please. We're done with this projection thing. It's so predictable. It's just adding insult to injury. They think we're stupid, or they want us to believe that they think we're stupid, and it ultimately works out to the same end. I mean, people just eventually become stupid in order to live up to expectations, I think.
So why do you think that there's no blowback from the public of the West when the hypocrisy is so in your face and so blatant that even a blind monkey can see what's going on, especially as Rashid said. They keep announcing these weapons packages and these aids packages to Ukraine, to the Nazis who are running Ukraine, and yet they are demanding that Iran or North Korea or Brazil or China don't aid their ally. It's something. Is there a mental disconnect with the leaders or something? Because it seems like we're living in bizarro world.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with censorship. I think there is significant disgust and distaste and outrage with what our government is doing, but they've made it. They've done a very good job in cutting off people's voices so that people just can't compare notes. I mean, they drive a wedge through every issue that they can find that's going to split some form of the resistance population, and they atomize the entire society so that no one can at least have the morale boosting awareness that there are people like themselves who similarly think that what their government is doing is a complete atrocity and they don't want it being done in their own name. I mean, I think that just the fact that like we allow ourselves, we pay taxes and then these taxes go to funding these crimes against humanity. And it's like, so you're literally funding the thing that you're like protesting against. And it's like, we're all guilty of this, but you would think if there's only this many IRS agents, right? What can they possibly do? Well, nobody wants to be the one guy who stands up to the IRS agents and then everybody else goes and hides. So unfortunately we just don't trust each other, and they've made it so that we can't trust each other. And it's I don't know what the answer to that is, but there's definitely outrage out there. It's just a question of like how do we redirect it? How do we consolidate it? How do we work with it? Because it's there. It's definitely there.
You know, and it's so blatant because what came to mind is all of the protests that are going on across Europe. And when the protests that was fomented by the US and Europe happened in Libya, the US used that as a justification to go in there and not just overthrow the government, they brutalized and sodomized a sitting head of state. And yet there's no outrage from the journalists who were screaming, we must remove this dictator. We must remove this dictator. When you see Macron and you see Sunak and you see all the rest of them doing things that are way worse. And these are not fomented uprisings. These are organic uprisings in these nations. When we look at Libya, those were stoked by the US and the West.
Well, the Gaddafi's crime was that he wanted to have a Pan-African gold dinar currency that would have completely dethroned the petrodollar as being the reigning coin of the realm, and so that he had to go because we can't have that. And I mean, Libya was by far like the most advanced country in that region. It was considered a very egalitarian, very like progressive in a good sense of the word. And and unfortunately, Gaddafi had trusted the U.S. when they said, "Get rid of your weapons of mass destruction, and we'll be your friend, and we'll stop like sanctioning you." And so that worked for a couple of years, yeah. And then suddenly, whoops, bayonet up the ass. That's a hell of a way to go. I mean, poor guy. And the country is still a complete mess. It's people being sold in slave markets in public. Is a complete atrocity what was done to that place. And we've got Hillary Clinton, who's still hailed as like the hero of women and girls everywhere. Oh, we came, we saw, he died. Yeah. No.
As I said before,
let us not forget the water. Hold on one second. This water, I got to speak on this water part of what she's saying. This about, because a lot of this gets left off. We talk about the petrodollar and being unseated by the gold dinar, but one of the main things that took place is that Libya had a study done, and they found out that they had one of the largest underwater reserves on the planet. And what Gaddafi did, he commissioned some Western companies led by Canada to build aqueducts so that he can use this water to turn desert into fertile farmland. And on completion, the day of completion of that, the Canadian company informed the US and NATO, and as soon as they started bombing, one of the first things they hit were the aqueducts. Now, okay, Rashid, go ahead.
No, I was just saying the same thing as I said before. When he comes with his democracy, anybody with any sense should run for the hills.
That's the only way to do it. I mean, you can't survive that unless you have nuclear weapons, and even then, it's doubtful.
Jenna says when referring to the people and how the tricks are being played on them by the government, she says they're all watching effing TikTok dances.
That too.
Which I agree. I agree with that 100%.
The power that TikTok has over its users is really quite disturbing. I don't use it personally, but I read these articles about these people. Oh, I discovered my sexuality by watching TikTok videos. So you decide who you're going to sleep with by like using the social network platform. I think you might have the cause and effect. I mean, there's something really wrong there. And all of this talk about how, it's evil China propagandizing us to make us weaker. And it's like, well, I mean, China could be doing that, yes, but the fact that that the Americans are in such a weak psychological state that they allow this to happen, I would say that's equally worthy of alarm. But no, let's just ban TikTok, and then the next platform that comes along, this one will be run by the U.S. It'll be okay if we teach the children to want to cut their genitals off and affix them to their foreheads and whatever the latest trend in gender thing is.
Adriano says, I've been to Russia a few times, and the Western globalist puppets have no idea how Russia is. I love Russia. I'll send my CV to RT. So
I've never been to Russia, but it seems like they have their heads on a lot straighter than we do. I mean, that's all I can say. Like they don't have this like weird like self-loathing that like requires them to abase themselves before this like completely farcical idea of like, I mean, these they don't even know like what the meaning of the words that they're throwing around is. Like we now have this like Department of Equity that's going to go into every government agency and just decide, are they being equitable? And like, of course, equity is not equality, and they're banking on you confusing the two. And I mean, we already had a law similar to this passed in New York, which I was one of the few people I think was actually talking about that. But it's this idea that they can just go and completely invalidate all the work your agency is doing if they just decide that there needs to be like 3 more gay people over here and 2 more non-white people, a non-binary person over there, and as if that this is not diversity. Diversity is diversity of ideas, diversity of beliefs, diversity of viewpoints, like the sort of things you actually do want in the government. But no, it's always been all about just surface, like you want to have it look like a United Colors of Benetton ad, and you don't actually want to do the work to have that reflected in people's insides.
And Jenna says, come the revolution, I'm for hanging these compliant so-called journalists too. The ones
they'll go after each other. Basically, they're going to, the rats will eat each other. I think we already see this. Like when people refer to it as the circular firing squad. Like when there's trouble afoot in these ideologically psychotic communities, like they start going after each other and snitching on each other and turning each other in because they want the powerful to go after the other guy. And so it's you'll rat out your little sister for an extra chocolate bar if it comes down to that.
See, she understands too. She says the great man-made river was the first to be bombed. That's what I'm saying. When they hit Libya, they took that out first. They did not want Libya to make Africa food independent, and so that was one of the main things that they hit. But let's go to No Way Out. He says the only reason the West still uses the depleted uranium it costs only 1/5 of what Wolfram would cost. Russia, China, India, and many other countries have banned this kind of ammunition after Yugoslavia and Iraq. Well, on that note, I want to get your opinion on this because I remember hearing Vladimir Putin stating that this would cross one of the gravest red lines if the West were to supply Ukraine with depleted uranium, because that would be, Russia would take that as them giving them a dirty bomb.
Dirty bomb, yeah,
and Russia would respond militarily in kind. And yet we have Great Britain or Britain or the UK, whichever one they want to call it, openly saying, hey, not only have we supplied the Challenger 2 tanks, and I think they have a coating of that on in the inner workings of the tank, but we're going to supply them with depleted uranium. And Cynthia McKinney told me this. She said, because I was supposed to go on a fact-finding thing with her in Libya before the bombing started in Libya. Well, afterwards, she told me that it was depleted uranium used. She said it was depleted uranium used in Afghanistan and Iraq, and the consequences are unbelievable.
Yeah, it's really really bad. That's what they do. They go to they invade a place and then they salt the earth so that nothing can grow there, nothing can survive there afterwards. Like I went to Vietnam a few years ago, and there's a museum there that they have. It's like the Museum of War Crimes, basically. And this is like 4 or 5 generations on, and these kids that are still being born from Agent Orange with like horrible mutations, like limbs that are like little knobs and like big huge heads, and it's really like it's shocking to confront this stuff visually. And the fact that like Vietnam, by the way, can be so like congenial with the United States after what they've done. I mean, if the tables were turned, I don't think that we would be. Vietnam would have been wiped off the face of the earth, basically. And so it's the United States just doesn't know how to get along with anyone. It's just that we have to destroy. There's this inferiority complex, like I said, the exceptional nation. I mean, they feel like because we're especially anybody who does anything better than us, that they have to be put in their place. Anyone who doesn't accept our when we say do this, do that, they have to be put in their place because we're special and nobody else is. It's just
Rashid, you get to ask the question, but before you do, everybody smash that like button. And go ahead, Rashid.
Well, this time, I think he bit off a little bit more than he can chew. China and Russia can fight back. As long as he can go up and beat up on little bitty, go around and beat up on the little weak sisters and stuff, everything is, what did one of them say that every now and then we need to take some small country and smash it against the wall? Well, this time, Russia and China ain't going to play around with that. They can fight back just as well as you. And then have this like this nut, what's his name? Lindsey Graham talking about we need to shoot down Russia. Russia have the S-400, S-300, S-500, and about to bring in the S-600, who can shoot down all of your planes. The U.S. politicians are nuts, thinking that the way they think is we can go in there and bomb up somebody else and the rest of the people are going to sit back and take it. What happens when the other shoot back? And you ain't got anything to fight against them.
Yeah, we're pretty much out of ammo. I mean, Stoltenberg, Jens Stoltenberg in NATO has said this several times now. So we're basically out of ammo. So what are they going to do? And it's you can keep throwing people at the problem, but they have nothing to shoot with. And there's been stories for months now that the Ukrainians are being sent to the front with nothing to shoot with. So what exactly are they hoping to achieve by this? And yeah, if the United States couldn't beat a bunch of nomadic goat herders in Afghanistan in 20 years, what do they think they're going to accomplish against Russia and China? And a bunch of saber rattling. And basically, Zelensky has actually said that this is a war being fought in the hearts and minds, and so we know that's a polite way of saying this is a war of bullshit. And so they can bullshit and bullshit and bullshit, and the United States is very good at bullshitting. It's one of our top skills. But like, I'm sorry, am I not supposed to swear? BSing. Okay. Okay. No. We can do bullshit with the best of them, but the problem is that like Russia and China have more than just bullshit. They have actual machines that can destroy populations, and it's not just like smoke and mirrors, and it's not just like this Potemkin like oh yes, we have Hollywood that shows you that all these fighter jets doing this and this. Our fighter jets can't fly in the rain. Like the F-35, if there's a thunderstorm, that shit goes down. And so like it just it's like we saw that drone that was over near Crimea bothering the Russians, and they tried to say that the Russians shot it down. It's like, no, the Russians jammed its signal and it went down itself. Like you guys got to make a better quality plane here. And it's that they're just doing this. They're throwing as much stuff at them as they want to try to goad them into accidentally killing an American or something, and then they can declare war. But I think at some point this has a reminiscent of the whole Samson option thing, which is Israel's doomsday plan. It's basically if they're threatened, they're going to press the red button, and then everybody goes boom. And so the United States knows that it's circling the drain, and its brain has been taken over by this parasite that is basically Israel's hooks are in its like head there, and it's so this is the doomsday plan, and it sucks that the rest of the world's population has gotten caught in between this entity and its psychotic destiny. Lindsey Graham is the world's biggest closet case, by the way. Like his working out his own issues with his own sexuality on like the world stage by like wanting to wage war on anything that moves is really like it's appalling.
Well, Um, they're saying in so many words, they're saying if I can't rule, I'm gonna kill everybody.
If
I'm
I can't
taking
have her, no one will.
everybody
It's the
down.
abusive boyfriend model of geopolitics. Yeah, if I can't have her, she's gonna have to go.
Nightly Firefly says, very nice. I'll recommend this show to all my viewers. And we go down to, let's see, No Way Out says, when he's talking about the French, he says, yeah, look at France. What I have seen so far is that the violence of the demonstrations have started after the, what is, I
Gendarmerie.
cannot, okay,
Gendarmerie.
okay, I couldn't hardly see
It's
it.
police. It's police.
Okay, used gas grenades who blessed many people. One woman lost a finger. My God. And this is what Jenna says right here, which I want to address. I really want to address. UK is
Yeah.
desperate to push or force Russia to attack NATO, then cry Article 5. Well, I want everyone to just Google these words whenever you have a chance. Russia would defeat NATO in 3 days, or Russia would defeat NATO in I think it's 72 hours or something like this. Just Google those, and it would tell you that it is not all the flair that everybody continues to believe. America has the bully pulpit, and so they make you believe that they're better than what they are, or that they have more military muscle than what they have. But according to the Pentagon own writings, and according to NATO's own writings, that if Russia went to war with NATO, they would overrun European nations, most what they call their flank, within 72 hours or 3 days or something like that. Russia, and remember that Barack Obama said the reason that he did not do what is being done now is because he said Russia holds the key to escalatory dominance on the European continent. What say you on this matter?
I would tend to agree. I mean, like Obama, for all of his many flaws, at least wasn't like so eager to just jump into the inferno as his successors have been. I mean, it's Victoria Nuland who's really running the show, and she's got this pathological hatred of Russia and Russians, and unfortunately, she's got a whole bunch of people who similarly minded in the State Department and in the government. And they just are determined to like let their hatred for Putin, their hatred of Russia, cloud basically their own survival instincts, if they even have any at this point. I mean, I really don't know like how a person gets to a point like a Victoria Nuland. I mean, you look at her and you see that there's something deeply wrong with this woman, and she's completely batshit insane, and like running around in the Maidan Square in 2014, handing out cookies to all the Nazis in between, like coordinating the snipers from the rooftops. Oh, you shoot on that side, you shoot that side. Oh yeah, look, they're shooting at us. They're shooting at us. Right, and it's really appalling.
Rashid?
This is one thing you can't see. Like we said before, these are psychopaths. Once you take somebody's life, you can never get it back again. And life means nothing to these people. 400,000, 500,000, couple of million. Oh, who cares? That's exactly what it looks like. As you said before, the people that's in Ukraine now, what do they consider the Russian as? Orcs.
Orcs.
Yeah. That's what they think of them. They're non-people. And if you think somebody is a non-person, then that means it's easy to do whatever you want with them. Wipe out a whole, like I said, hundreds of millions of people, since they're really not people.
Yep. And that they teach them that from a very early age. Like there have been a bunch of these school books that have been found, and when the Russians came in through Eastern Ukraine and found these textbooks that they're literally giving these children that are talking about how the Russians are not really people, and like we will rise and conquer the evil orcs and all this stuff. And it's like you're putting this in front of kids, like. It's not going to end well. And I mean, like I said, what happens in Ukraine is then happening in the United States and happening in all these other Western quote unquote democracies. So like, yeah, it's going to get pretty real. And they have this website, Mirat Vorets, which is basically enemies of the state. And they license you to hunt down and kill these people whose only crime, quote unquote, is reporting objectively from the Donbass. So like there's like Russian journalists, German journalists, American journalists, Roger Waters is on there from Pink Floyd. these people that the Ukrainian government has sanctioned all-out war, including killing them, and many of them have already died. And it's this is what's next for the United States. So that's I've been predicting this for several years, and it's already coming to pass. That there's the Ukrainian, I think it was, I forget which department, I think it might have been the State Department, but sponsored like Ukraine doing one of these things, but for the English language audience. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it had the similar people, and it was like academics and journalists and whatnot that were considered insufficiently pro-Ukraine. And you got somebody like Elon Musk who, like, he's paying for all this Starlink stuff out of his own pocket for the better part of a year, and then as soon as he says something like, "Oh, maybe they should make peace" or something, then it's like, okay, well, he's persona non grata and he must die. It's like you guys, you're not gonna make many friends with that approach. Sorry.
Well, Jenna, let me one of our viewers in the chat, Jenna, the next time you refer to Lindsey Graham, refer to him as Lindsey Boy. That's what we call it, Lindsey Boy. All right. So let's go a little further. No Way Out says, but that's in the interest of the U.S. elite. Non-educated people can easily be controlled, and the doctrine divide and conquer can be simply applied. That's true. Yeah, that's what we talk about on this. Because listen, I have to make this point over and over again. The elite believe that they are doing something in the interest of their cause, but at the same time, they're not looking at the long-term ramifications. Yes, you may be able to push your policy objectives over by dumbing down the masses, but if you have a dumbed down masses, how can your society progress or maintain? Because education is the foundation for civilization. Proper education is the foundation for growth of a civilization. If you dumb down the educational system, you're dumbing down the people who are your future astronauts, lawyers, doctors, mechanics, engineers, politicians, everything. And that is the destruction of a republic. What say you on this matter?
That's what we're living through right now. I mean, if you have to handhold your entire population just to get them to be able to, like, wipe their own ass in the morning, what do you think is going to happen when it comes time for them to run the state? And you have them standing up there pretending like they're grown-ups, and people like both of Biden's press secretaries, the one now, Karine Jean-Pierre, who can't form a complete sentence if her life depended on it, and the one before, Jen Psaki, was what's carousel voting? I have no idea. I'll have to get back to you on that. It's not a thing. And it's like this. We're dealing with is people who have been play acting as adults for so long and have gotten away with it because there was never any adversity, and the United States just ran on its own power for so long. And now the power is coming to an end, and it comes time that when the rubber meets the road, people have to actually like fulfill their functions in society instead of just like, oh yeah, I'll phone that in, or I'll do it later. No, you actually have to do it, and you can't have a country that's just bullshit or just oh yeah, passing the buck, or I owe you. It's like I refer to it as crackhead economics, where Uncle Sam runs into the liquor store with a sawed-off shotgun and says, "Give me all your money," and he leaves a big pile of IOUs. I'll pay this back later. And the next day he goes and does the same thing. Finally, the guy behind the counter is just gonna get pissed off and blow him away. So, like, I mean, we're really I think that the situation is reaching ahead, because I don't see how it could possibly continue for any longer. They've really pushed people to the limit of what they can physically stand as well as like psychologically stand, and it's gotta end somewhere.
And Jenna, on addressing the part where we talked about the Russia overrunning NATO in 3 days, this is what she has to say about that. She said 3 days is before NATO disarmed itself by giving Ukraine all of its weapons. Go ahead, Rashid.
You know, what it seems like is that we're living idiocracy. What's that movie? Idiocracy?
Yeah.
Is in real life. That's exactly what it seems like.
Yep. And it's pretty scary, because, like I said earlier, that movie was not meant to be a documentary, but it's definitely.
It looks like it is now.
Oh, totally. And I mean, even it's like the opening sequence where they're talking about how it came to be that way, where it's like the intelligent people are like not reproducing, or maybe they'll try to have one child, but it never ends up working out, and then the dumb fucks are like just spawning. And unfortunately, when you have a society that you make it like it's almost penalized to be reproducing or to be having kids, you need to do what Hungary is doing and actually pay people to have children and pay them to raise their kids. And I'm frozen. What's going on there? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we still hear you.
Okay,
We
cool.
still hear you.
So as long as it's just my visual thing, at least I'm not making a completely stupid face.
Did not that dictator Gaddafi do the same thing, paying people to have children?
Yep. And that's why he had to go. I mean, we don't want anyone getting any ideas that like maybe we want the next generation who's like well cared for and has like intelligent parents that can teach them what's what in the world, and you don't have to have the government holding their hand from. I mean, they're getting kids into school now at age like 2, and when you look at what they're being taught in these schools, we're gonna have a serious problem on our hands. I mean, we already do, but we have a bigger problem on our hands.
Mm-hmm. Jenna says all these loudmouth Western politicians appear to have generational links to Nazi Germany. Yes,
they do.
Yes.
Yep, Chrystia Freeland, wasn't her grandfather a big Nazi guy in Canada?
Yes.
And,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And the Canadian foreign minister, her
I said Chrystia Freeland.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah, she is tied to the Nazis hip to hip. And
Yep.
what about
Isn't Victoria Nuland's father the same way? Grandfather?
Yeah.
Got ran out of Ukraine, and now he trained her to be anti-Russian. She want to kill every last Russian on the planet.
It's completely psychotic, like devotion to this genocidal aim, and it's like, as always, accuse the other guy of that which you are guilty. Oh yeah, well, Putin's guilty of war crimes. Like, no, Putin's not the one who's going and proudly videotaping himself shooting prisoners of war in the knees and like duct taping people to poles for like for not being able to recite some like Ukrainian I forget what it was. It was like some Ukrainian song that they couldn't sing it, so they're duct taping these people to poles with their pants down around their ankles, and like really great. That's a really thoughtful, and they're posting this stuff to their social media as if it's something to be proud of.
Mehdi says it all ends in a showdown between BRICS and the United Nations. Who will the world trust to investigate, hold trials, and punish fairly, and openly letting the truth decide who goes to prison?
It's a good question. I mean, it remains to be seen. I don't think the United Nations is at this point such a hollowed out husk of an organization. The WHO, which is the health arm of the United Nations, is trying to form this global government, this pandemic treaty that they want to have. And the way that they're going to do that is not, while everybody's focused on the pandemic treaty, they're altering these things that are already in place called the International Health Regulations. And that already gives them basically sovereignty over the world's health, how they deal with quote unquote pandemics, which at this point is anything the WHO says it is. And the WHO is run, the United States is the first contributor, but the second contributor is Bill Gates and the Bill Gates Foundation. So you got this guy who is the front man for who knows what kind of nefarious interests. I think people know what kind of nefarious interests, but being rhetorical here. So this guy, this person whose policies are open genocide. I mean, he's been very clear about how he wants to reduce the population of the earth, and he and his wife both, and hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein and all this stuff. And so this is the guy who is the United Nations health minister, basically. And so when you got an organization like this, and UNESCO, which is having Wikipedia be like the education ministry, and I mean, it sounds like I'm jumping from topic to topic, but this is like, if I had to actually explain the Wikipedia relationship, it would take a very long time. But suffice to say, UNESCO, which is the United Nations educational cultural body, is basically trying to shoehorn Wikipedia in place of the education that was lost during the coronavirus, when the kids couldn't go to school and were stuck at home and were basically retarded in their development to such a degree that the CDC has pushed back developmental milestones for American children for as much as a year in some cases, because they're just not developing because they have a mask on their faces. Kids don't know what a smile is. And so, yeah, instead of education, give them Wikipedia. That's a great idea. Give them something that's, the truth is substituted with verifiability, which means how many bought and paid for media operations say it's true. And that's a great way to teach the kids. So really, really scary what they're doing.
This Bill Gates, wasn't he the same guy that owned Monsanto with all of these GMO seeds and stuff?
He works very closely with Monsanto. Yeah, he didn't own it.
I thought he owned most of the stock of it.
I'm sure he owns some of the stock. I don't know what the actual breakdown of that is, but he definitely owns. Yes, he definitely owns some of the stock, and he's been he's been #1 in pushing that stuff on Africans who do not want it and who are, as usual, not given a say in their own destiny because they have very nice shiny minerals underneath their land that we want.
You know, I want to follow up with No Way Out, and he was talking about America's years of war, where I just put in these. Anyone can put this in the Google search engine. U.S. has been at war since its existence. Oh, no question, just put U.S. has been at war in its existence. So if you put information comes since the United States of America was founded in 1776, this country has been at war for over 222 years. That is 93% of the time of its existence. And then we throw in the more because this was reported in, let's see, I think this was reported in 2017. So then you add what? 5 more years to that. So it's been at war for 227 years. That's amazing. And that you want to call Iran aggressive, or you want to call Russia aggressive, or you want to call China aggressive. Make that make sense to me.
Well, the United States lives in permanent upside down, opposite day. It's always opposite day with Uncle Sam, and it's just anything you have to at least translate it 180 degrees, and the lies become more understandable when you do that, and then you work from there, and then there's little nuances there. But this idea that any of these nations are aggressors. I mean, Russia does not have 800 military bases around the world. China does not have 800 military bases around the world. None of these countries will show up halfway around the world, plop their stuff down on your island that's off the coast of your country, and say, "Oh yeah, we're just going to hang out here now, and there's nothing you can do about it." What? You're offended? Are you going to attack us? This is our territory now. No, none of these countries have even done the thing the United States still believes in, this Monroe Doctrine, that the entirety of the Western Hemisphere is our backyard. So China and Russia, you guys just stay out because this is ours. Never mind this national sovereignty thing that we claim to be big supporters of. Nope, Venezuela is ours. All these countries are ours.
Please smash the like button. Also, let's transition more towards Russia and Ukraine, and then before we allow you to leave, we'll ask 1 or 2 questions on the situation with the United States pivot to Asia, which is starting a lot of tensions over there. Where is this going with the United States and NATO continuing to up the ante and push the limits? Eventually, Russia is going to take the gloves off because Vladimir Putin said we haven't even begun fighting yet. So where does this leave the United States, NATO, with egg on their face or with a bloody nose?
Well, I mean, like I said, it seems to be this Samson option thing where they've realized that they need a catastrophe. And they need a catastrophe in order to usher in this new financial system that's going to be based on carbon credits and central bank digital currencies. And one way to do this is to have an all-out world war that just causes so much destruction that the record keeping is all lost. So nobody knows who owes what debts to who, when it's largely the U.S. financial system that is just completely in the red. So many trillions of dollars that, I mean, even now, the national debt is several orders of magnitude larger than what we're told it is. We're talking tens, hundreds of trillions of dollars here. And just somebody has got to make all that go away. The only way to make that go away is if you have World War III. And they tried to do it with the coronavirus. Didn't quite muscle a big enough catastrophe to get rid of the entire records of the banking system. But basically, they're out of money, and they need a Hail Mary, just this big event, this cataclysm that can wipe clean the slate. I think that's what's going on here.
If you destroy the world, then where are they supposed to live at?
That's why they have bunkers in New Zealand. I mean, I don't know how they think they're going to survive this. I really don't understand their way of thinking. But we've seen that these people are not rational. They don't necessarily think the way you and I do, with cause and effect. And maybe your actions have consequences. And I don't know, you want to actually do things that are more pro-human instead of anti-human. I don't know. I mean, I think that they think that they're exempt from the laws of physics, the laws of nature, the laws of anything.
I want to say something about what you said about into the trillions of dollars in debt. I was watching an interview that was on RT. I believe it was in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. It could have been between 2009 and 2012, but I believe it was in 2010. I saw the interview, and something just told me to download the interview. And it was this professor of economics. And at the time, he did the numbers. And he said at that time that the U.S. debt, true debt, back then was $222 trillion then. See, most people don't have long memories. So new articles can come out and, oh, we're 31 trillion. Oh, even when we add up everything, we're close to 90 trillion or 100 trillion. But this professor was talking about this then. I want everybody to be patient. This is a clip. I'm just going to let some of it play. I want you to listen to it. Then I want you to chime in on it because it tells the true state of America's economy. Because remember, if that happened in anywhere from 2009 to 2012, and we're in 2023, heading into to the end, we're heading into the middle of 2023. After the video, I want you to tell me, where do you think we are economically? And is this one of the rationales for America's unhinged policies to move on Russia and to move on China because the time is limited for them? I want you to pay close attention to this clip right here.
Lawrence Kotlikoff, economics professor at Boston University. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
It's great to be with you and great to be in Russia.
So you're the one who states that America is broke and is even in a worse state than Greece and Ireland. How so? What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, we economists look at all the bills the government has to pay. And in the U.S. case, we have enormous bills that have been kept off the books that are not official debts, but they're very real. For example, paying me my social security benefits, my old age pension, that's a real obligation. It's not part of official government debt, but it's, very important because there are 78 million baby boomers who are going to get these social security payments and, in addition, medical payments from the government. If you look at all those payments, they're about $3 trillion a year. So we have these huge bills. Nobody has thought about paying for them. And Congress and the presidents over the years have just focused on official debt and basically have not told the public about these big bills.
You said the amount of the fiscal gap in the United States is, in your estimation, $222 trillion. Is this right?
$222 trillion. If you take...
This is like an astonishing number, which is like 3 times the world's GDP. This is more than what the world makes.
20 times higher than the official debt in the hands of the public, which is 11 trillion. So if you add all these spending obligations into the distant future, and you compare them with all the taxes, and you include in the spending all the interest payments and principal payments on the debt, on the official debt, you have 222 trillion in present value. Now this is 12% of GDP on an ongoing basis. In other words, we need to get 12% more of GDP, either in tax increases or spending cuts, in order to have the fiscal gap be zero. We're doing far too little too late. It's like operating on a person with cancer and you say, well, there's a big tumor here. We're just going to take a little bit out today and we'll come back in 5 years and we'll take out some more. But maybe in 5 years the patient is dead because the tumor got bigger. So this is why we are in worse shape than Greece. And Greece, it's about 10% of GDP they need on an ongoing basis. We need 12%. Italy, it's about 5%. Germany, it's about 5%. So when you look at it from this perspective, it's a whole different story than when you look just at the official debt. Because these governments are making choices, word choices, about what to call official obligations and what to call unofficial.
So are they intentionally hiding the enormity of the problem?
They're intentionally hiding this. They've been spending, in our country, 6 decades running a massive Ponzi scheme, taking from young people, giving to old people, and then telling the young people, don't worry, you'll get yours when you're old. Promising pensions, promising healthcare benefits. And, this is happening in all countries. Even Russia has a pension system. but it doesn't seem to be in as bad a shape as ours in terms of paying for its benefits in the future.
But I mean, this number, 222 trillion, I mean, what exactly is this, where is this money going? Who is spending it? I mean, certainly not the average American. What is it, like the 1% of the super rich, the military needs? Where's it going?
Where's all the spending?
Yeah.
Well, you have, again, you've got a lot of old people now. They're getting very high benefits, about $30,000 per person. It's scheduled to go up to about $40,000 when I retire, which will be about 15 years. So you can see that we're just very generous to the old people in our country.
What do you suggest? Like cut spending, raise taxes? That would be suicidal to any American president.
Well, we have to be adults. If we're running the country, we have to act like adults because our main responsibility as adults is to make sure our kids have a good future. So we have to reduce the growth rate of the benefits to the elderly. And that requires cutting the growth, being much more careful about how much we spend on health care, because it's been the health care benefits have been growing at twice the growth rate of per capita GDP for 40 years. These are the government health care benefits for the elderly. So it can't continue because it's going to kill the country. So we have a huge problem. It's being hidden. It's not being described and discussed, disclosed, and we're in very bad shape.
You just mentioned that you need to take care of the future generations. Clash of generations is the term you use to describe what future awaits for American children paying up the debts of their fathers. But the United States, when you look at it, it really has lived on debt ever since World War II, and increasingly so in the past 30 years. And they have somehow managed not to collapse, and they have no problem getting new debt. Why do you think that the new generation won't be able to manage it?
Well, over time, the official debt will become bigger and bigger as a share of GDP. And at some point, the Chinese and other people will stop lending us money. And our interest rates will go up dramatically. We'll have a bond market collapse. And at that point, the deficit will get even bigger. The official debt will accumulate even more rapidly. And our government is also printing a lot of money to pay for these bills. So inflation can also take off very quickly. So I see big problems, and they may not be in 30 years, they may be in 5 years or 2 years, that the Chinese and other people start to understand how bad the situation is. And then we'll be in the situation of Greece, where people won't lend us money.
So that was years ago. I mean, roughly a decade ago. How is the debt still $222 trillion when all of the economic barometers for the empire has worsened? And I'm talking about on a massive scale.
Oh yeah, the amount of money that's been printed just in the last 3 years alone is dwarfs what the amount of money that was previously in circulation. I can't even imagine what the number must be like now, but I mean, I don't see how they can possibly put this cat back in the bag. They do need this cataclysm to wipe the slate clean, because otherwise, it's you can't. No one's going to put up with this stuff anymore. The crackhead cannot keep walking back into the liquor store and doing the same exact thing and leaving a pile of IOUs, and people just put up with that like it's totally okay. Especially now that they've seen that the United States is not militarily infallible. Stuff like Afghanistan made a big impression on people. I think this is like one of the poorest countries in that region, and they kick our ass. So okay, maybe they're not so invincible after all. And sure enough, I mean, Russia and China now standing up to them, and other countries are standing up to them, and it's the beginning of the end for Uncle Sam, I think.
So how can what I'm asking also is, how can the government maintain itself? And we know that she was hiding the true rate of her debt back then, and she was reporting that she was at the time 14 trillion in debt, and at that time he was talking about 222 trillion. Now she's reporting that she's 31 trillion in debt. So the number has to be astronomical. So how can America prevent herself from falling? And if what she's doing now is a ramification of the massive debt buildup because she sees that there's no way to pay it off. So she's saying, to hell with everybody. I'm a party like it's 1999 and I'm gonna shut the world's lights out.
That's what's going on. I mean, they know that they can't come out of this one honestly, or come out of this one in a way that actually respects the rule of law, or this rules-based international order, or whatever they call the crap that they're trying to foist down the throats of other people, which basically says, do what we do. We don't have to do it, but we do what we say. We don't have to do what we say, but you have to do what we say because we're special. And I mean, it's only so much of that people can take. And so, yeah, the United States can't exit this one honorably, so they have to do this scam, and they have to just like I said, do such a cataclysm that there are no records left that people can tell exactly how they fucked over the entire human race. Because then, I mean, they're not going to live that one down.
Rashid, I'll let you have the final two questions on as we pivot to Asia with China and America. Go ahead.
What does it look like for the, what do you see looks like for Ukraine, the finish of the war?
I think Ukraine is basically going to be left a smoking crater in the ground. I mean, that both countries have decided that they're just going to, well, I mean, the United States and NATO countries rather have decided they're just going to exhaust their weapons supply there, and because they're desperate to get this World War III going, and no country is taking the bait. I mean, they were even trying to get North Korea to take the bait as far as like starting World War III. Like, it was making fun of Kim Jong-un's weight or something, and like he's not going to bomb you. Nobody's going to bomb you. Nobody wants this World War III except the West. So it's if they can't get that, they're going to fight to the last Ukrainian, and they're rapidly coming up on the last Ukrainian. I mean, they're putting people into service that are like kids or old men because there's no men left to fight. And so I don't see how Ukraine can survive this as a country. I mean, it's going to be this like shell, this basically organized crime ring in the shape of a country, sort of like Israel is now, like again, big Israel. And it's going to be worn like a skin suit by the parasites who then say, oh yes, we are the true heirs of the Ukrainian people. And most of the Ukrainian people have been forced to flee and are now living in Russia or somewhere in Europe as refugees. So I don't think that Ukraine survives this as a country, basically.
That's good. Okay. I agree.
You get to ask her about the pivot to Asia.
Pivot to what's going on with them trying to cause war with Asia, and what do you think about the Iran, Saudi Arabia rap Brahman between and China is the one that's pushed it?
I think that was that rapprochement. There's something that's kind of off about it. The whole way that it was done, something seems like it's not quite right there. The idea that Israel had no idea that this was going on. Of course, Israel knows what's going on. They have moles in every crook and nook and cranny of those places. So, like, I think that Israel was maybe trying to put onto China this thing that maybe they arranged in some way. I need to look more into that one because it's a very there's something. It definitely means more than we're being told it means, and usually things over there do. But and in terms of why they're trying to start this front in China is, again, like I said, they need this world war in order to create this new, or to shoehorn this new financial system into a place that does not want it shoehorned into. So it's they need these carbon carbon based financial system that will allow them to basically steal the resources of the global south by saying, oh yes, well you guys you have huge debts, but you can trade us all of your natural resources in exchange for us forgiving your debts. We don't have to pay our debts because we're special, because we had a big terrible war, and so truth and reconciliation and all that. But they need a big power to fight them, and it's like they're going around to every country and grabbing their arm and hitting them with it, saying stop hitting yourself, and no country is taking the bait. So it's like they think that maybe China will, if they throw Nancy Pelosi at it enough, then Xi Jinping is going to be like, okay, fine, just to get this horrible bitch out of our face. But he's not, because he's like a sane, coherent statesman, and as is Putin, as are most people that are not allied with the United States. I mean, I wish the BRICS the best, because they're going to be going up against some genuine psychopaths. And I think Russia's mistake all of this time is to assume the U.S. is ever going to play fair. I mean, from the beginning of the fall of the Soviet Union, when they said, okay, NATO is not going to expand any further east than this, and this. and then they didn't get it in writing. Big mistake. And so they've been expanding eastward ever since. And sure enough, Russia is trying to report things accurately in terms of what's going on in the war, while the United States is just making stuff up. Like, oh yes, there was this fighter pilot who came in and shot down like 5 fighters jets in like 5 seconds, and he was the ghost of Kiev, and he was big and sexy and awesome. And it's like, this guy never existed. It was not a thing. And all of these PR schemes that they have, that's all they have, because they don't have the actual any sort of might to back it up. It's all smoke and mirrors. And you can't really run a civilization on that. It's the same thing with swapping out of your manufacturing base for a financial industry. You can't run a civilization on that. And so you can't run a civilization on like calling all of your people terrorists if they disagree with what your government is doing. It's like they're doing things that are not sustainable, and they know that. And it's just a question of how far can they run this into the ground in a way that is advantageous for them.
But don't you think that Vladimir Putin and the Russian leadership, don't you think that their patience is starting to wear thin with all of the provocations?
I certainly hope so, because they've really put up with an awful lot from the United States and from NATO. And it's starting to look like they're not going to fight back. At a certain point, like, you have to actually stand up for yourself. And I don't know what's taking them so long, because I realize that they don't want a world war, because they're, again, sane people here. But you can't let them walk all over you, because then you end up with the situation like in Syria. I mean, Syria is mostly destroyed. While the United States did not succeed in toppling Assad, they really destroyed that place, and it's a complete mess. There are parts of it that have been rebuilding, and Assad is still in power, which is great. It's nice to see a head of state in that part of the world actually survive the United States and Israel's predations. But it's just like, I mean, Russia does not want to end up like that. They don't want to end up carved into many pieces, like what people over there are already saying they want to do, is have like Circassia and Bielorussia and all of these like ethnic enclaves, which is what they always do. They balkanize the place. Look at Yugoslavia. This is how they divide and conquer, literally.
But Americans, and I know that the Russian politicians are very adept to the diplomatic scene, and they should know that there is no stopping the U.S. unless you sock her in the nose.
Yep.
The bully is that old saying for the bully. The bully will not stop bullying until the bully gets socked in the nose, get confronted and socked in the nose. And I'm not talking about by proxies. I'm talking about Russia may have to sling one of those hypersonic missiles over there and destroy a NATO base. I believe so, because if it was me, I'm just going to be honest. If it were me, and my soldiers were constantly being killed by the West, and they're constantly mocking Russia about this and bragging about, we're sending this and we're doing that and we will do this and we will do that. And America resides some 10,000 kilometers or more away from Ukraine. What Russia should do is lob one of those hypersonic missiles over there. For the next time that a drone reaches a Russian base, Russia should return the favor and lob a hypersonic missile over there in Poland or Latvia or somewhere over there, and give the U.S. and the West a message. The next time, the hypersonic weapon will be nuclear armed.
Yeah, I mean, they have to show some sign of resistance more than just, oh, you're going to cross a red line, you're about to cross a red line. They've crossed so many red lines now. It's just like, it seems like they're not going to actually react. And so they've backed themselves into a corner. Basically, they shouldn't have let it go this long. They shouldn't have let the situation in Ukraine go for 8 years, with letting them just shell the shit out of Donbass and destroy these people who just wanted to be out from under the thumb of their Nazi rule. And the fact that Russia took its time and thought that, oh, we can do diplomatic processes, they should have known diplomatic processes don't work when you're dealing with an unhinged, psychopathic, serial killer, which is basically what the U.S. government represents to the rest of the world. And you can't appease your way out of tyranny. And this is what they want to impose, their brand of tyranny on the world, and the world is not interested. But we need leaders who will stand up to them. And I mean, Putin is one of the better ones, but he's not looking very strong right now, and that's a big problem, I think.
Mehdi says, "Thank you, Helen, for being so insightful."
Thank you for watching, and thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for coming. Hey, Rashid, I know you got cut off twice. I know that. I was looking down in the booth, and I was trying not to laugh because I saw you doing like this, and they cut you off twice. What have you? Because she's been very nice and lending her time, and I don't want to keep her over. So let's close out with like 2 questions. You have the final 2 questions.
Well, I'm used to getting booted out. I'm used to that already, so it makes no difference. But like you said, the same thing with you just can't let somebody constantly sock you. For instance, Syria with Israel, anytime they want to beat somebody, they whip out and push bombs and bomb them up. It has to be a time to have consequences for doing stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that Israel never has any accountability for any of the stuff they do. I mean, the fact that they've got so many people who, like, pedophiles run there because there's no extradition, and they can just go commit sex crimes wherever they want, and then they could go hide in Israel, and then they're not going to get extradited. So it's like a version of that, but for larger geopolitically speaking. And unfortunately, because other countries are watching what Israel's doing and saying, hey, we can get away with that too. And sure enough, here's Ukraine sending their intelligence services to go like pry through the underwear doors of priests in the church. Like that's really disgusting. You get this. Oh, this is the democratic future of Eastern Europe. Yes, we are going to crack down on people for worshiping the wrong way. That's really very retro, guys. Sure.
And final question, Rashid. Are you there?
They don't understand, as you were saying. Yeah, I'm here. They haven't cut me kick yet. What you said before about the money is no good. See, what people don't understand, that without any commodity-backed currency, all you're doing is just printing up money.
Yeah,
and this is what's going on. All you do is go to a computer and type in a billion or 2 or 3 or a couple of trillion. It means nothing. But what the blowback must be, and what they don't understand, is that the other countries are getting offered dollar. No, what they did to Russia, went out and stole $300 billion. It's worse than having a stick-up man with pointed gun in your nose and stealing all of your money. So nobody else wants that. This is what I see coming to the fire.
Yeah,
everybody gonna get off, and then where is she gonna be at?
It's happening very quickly, because if all Saddam Hussein had to do to get invaded was just even talk about using oil trading in euros, and just even talking about that, I don't think he even did any of that. But then U.S. shows up and deposes him, and he kills him, and it's over. Now we've got countries that are actively trading in other currencies and talking about doing all sorts of currency instruments that don't involve the dollar in exchange for oil, which is, of course, that's the death knell of the petrodollar. So the United States has no bite to back up its bark anymore, and the world is rapidly realizing this. And I think that's the best thing that could really happen for humanity, is for people to realize that this big scary hegemon that is that everybody has lived in fear of for so long is really just a joke. And I mean, it's a joke with nuclear weapons, yes, but if they're anything like our F-35s, they probably don't work in the rain. So all you got to do is just depose them when it's raining, and they won't nuke you. I mean, I don't know. I make jokes about these things because they're so like ridiculously depressing, and the future does seem a little grim for humanity. But it's like we have to realize that these people are complete jokes. They are not worthy of your respect. They're not worthy of your fear. And just like the more people realize that, then the more likely we are to get out of this alive, I think.
Well, we'd like to thank you for giving us your time. We're going to stay an extra minute or two. I just wanted to thank you for allowing us to question you and pick your brain on these things. We got to have you back on the show. We have to have you back on the show.
No, this was fun. Thanks for having me.
Hey, and be blessed and be safe and continue to do good work out there, because Lord knows we need good journalism.
Yep. You guys have a great night.
All right. Be blessed.
All right.
Bye.
So for those of you who are in the chat, you guys, I have to say this. I had to take time to say this. You guys have been kicking butt in the chat. I mean, the questions, the content, I mean, the nonstop interaction with each other and with us. You guys have been kicking butt, and it does my heart well to see that, because this is what we wanted. We wanted interaction. We wanted respectful conversations. It's okay to disagree so long as we're agreeable when we disagree. And this is a moment, that a teachable moment, that should be shown to the U.S. government and the Western world, that it is okay when people disagree with you, so long as they're agreeable when they disagree with you. You don't have to wage war with them every time you get pissed off or mad over the fact that nobody wants to jump on the bandwagon with you and accept your perception or your view of what takes place. It seems like to me that again, we go back to a show. I think it was with Larry Johnson we did the other day, or it could have been with Scott Ritter the day before that. There's an old saying: when you're in a hole, stop digging. And it seems like Newland, Blinken, what is the so-called national security advisor? What is that guy name? I forget his name. And Biden and his administration are digging the hole deeper, believing that if they continue to dig, they'll come out on the other side of the planet on China's property. It is absolutely insane, Rashid. What say you?
Well, that's what you have when you have people as unhinged. They believe that they can do the impossible. And as like she was talking about why they doing it, remember, they think they are exceptional. What I do, I'm not subject to the laws of nature. See, everybody take a machine. We used to love to go. I can take a machine, shoot up the whole name. Exceptional. And that's why they feel that they can do anything that anyone else, and nothing's gonna happen to me, because remember, I am the kid. I make the rules. That's what you keep hollering about. The rules, well, I know the rules don't apply to me because I'm the one that made up the rules, right? And that's the way he feels. Never forget that. He feel that he keeps saying it. We're exceptional. We're exceptional. We're exceptional. What's that? The law of physics. One equal force brings about a counter reaction, right?
Oh yes.
Well, he don't feel that.
It says any action
he don't feel
will get an equal or greater reaction.
Greater. Well, I don't feel that way. You know, I keep doing stuff, and nobody no one keeps calling me to account for my evils. I'm gonna double down on evil. In other words, I am the arch deceiver. I love doing evil, and that's the way they feel.
So listen, and as we close it, I'm going to share this with you. So my son kept telling me, he said, Dad, you need to monetize the channel. You have, thousands of watch hours, thousands upon thousands of watch hours. You have thousands of subscribers. You have 30-some, 40-some thousand, just this month alone, 40-some thousand, whatever it is. I'm not the tech guy. Those of you who have watched the show know that I am not tech savvy. So I said, you know what? I'm going to do it just to see what they say. I told my son, I said, watch, they come up with the excuse. So I want to show you guys something. Okay? I want to show you the response. Let me put it up here real quick, okay? Let's see. The Red Pill Diaries. It says, thank you for, and look, I'm putting it up here real quick. So I'm going to read it to you. I'm going to read part of it to you. Okay, it says, hi, the Red Pill Diaries. Thank you for applying to join the YouTube partner program. We carefully reviewed your channel, the Red Pill Diaries. Unfortunately, we found that your channel is not in line with the YouTube channel monetization policies, so we can't approve your application at this time. And they never told us what we are in contravention of. We have all the necessary things that they ask, plus some. And this is what we got. I wanted to share that with you all to tell you, listen, a setback is only with us. We only use that for a setup for something greater. And so we want you all to be a part of this ride as we ride down this highway of truth and bust the nose of all the lies, the deceivers, the war makers, the devils, the satanic branch. We want you to be a part of this. Whether the monetization was not even in our thoughts, but we had to do this just to push so that the people could see that there's a vendetta against this platform. Now there are other channels that are in our you know how you have analytics. I want to say this to y'all. You know how you have channel analytics, and they show you channels that are similar to your channel. And they showed Alexander McCurry's, Alex Christoforou, Scott Ritter, Gerald Salente, a whole host of them. And this was the Red Pill Diaries is the only one that does not fit fit the monetization process. Now you make that make sense. I mean, it's crazy. Rashid, before we close out, man, what do you have to say, man?
Keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes open. It's going to be a bumpy ride to the end.
So listen, we thank you all from the bottom of our hearts to the top of our souls. We thank you. We love you. If you love truth, we love you. And remember that God will always love you better. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous and spread the word and hit the thumbs up down there to keep us in their algorithm. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody.